Hey guys, my name's Feeder from the Solo Feeders channel. Today, I'm here to save you from playing the worst champions in League of Legends, if you're serious about climbing. If you feel that your champion pool may be holding you back, stick around to see if they're featured in this video. If they are, then you know it's time to finally drop them. So let's get into it, as I'll be revealing the 10 worst champions to main in League of Legends. So kicking it off in the top lane, the first pick on our list is Irelia. Irelia is one of those champions that usually seems to dominate her lane, but then slowly falls off and struggles to transition her advantage into a win. She has a strong laning phase and can easily gain priority by shoving waves. But with the new items, she sometimes runs into mana issues, and due to her low base movement speed, she can be easily ganked by an enemy with good CC, and does not scale too well into the late game. And even though she has incredibly high outplay potential, remember that she's a very high skill ceiling, and easier champs that have better natural defensive stats can sometimes beat her in lane unless she plays perfectly. And there's plenty of other meta picks that are much more forgiving and don't require high mechanical abilities. So even if she's one of the top picks in your champion pool, remember that there are better options to climb in solo queue. And hopefully she can see some buffs later in the season. Now our second pick for the top lane is Dr. Mundo. Mundo has received a bit of love from Riot in patch 11.2. and got a decent buff for his Q, E, and R. With these changes, his numbers in the jungle finally surpassed the 50% mark, but unfortunately his stats for the top lane still remain fairly low. One of the main factors for his struggle in the top lane is due to the new item changes, and the immense amount of healing reduction introduced in Season 11. In the jungle, Mundo goes where Mundo pleases. But in the top lane, Mundo goes directly into the arms of an enemy Darius, who can easily counter him with a simple purchase of an Executioner's Calling or a Bramble Vest. On top of this, Mundo's laning phase falls completely flat, due to various items with grievous wounds that usually cost a small amount of 800 gold. The problem with Mundo's current kit is that he depends way too much on health regeneration, and he has 0 to no escape when his ultimate is on cooldown, and his weak early game also makes it hard to come back if he's playing from behind. But hopefully, things will change when he finally receives his new and upcoming rework later this year, but until then, I'd stay away. Moving on to the jungle, our first champion in need of a little boost is Trundle. Trundle's always been a great pick for countering tanks, but during the preseason and over the past few patches, tank junglers just haven't been all too popular. The most played champions in the jungle right now are picks that farm fast and gank even faster, leaving Trundle on the sidelines and a bit on the weak side. Trundle has always been a decent duelist and has a healthy clear speed thanks to his passive. Two things that he lacks with the new items is a bit of extra mana in his core build and the Tiamat active that when combined with his Q could proc a pretty massive bite. But now, with mana removed from Trinity Force, the presence of Mind changes, and with Tiamat no longer being viable as a first item, he's stuck between a variety of mythic items that all give him a bit of power, but none really synergize with his kit. This leaves the Troll King with mediocre numbers in pretty much every elo. Our second pick for the jungle is none other than Lee Sin. Lee's numbers have never really been something to brag about, and although great for a montage and epic plays on the world stage, everyone knows that he's a high skill cap champion that is very complex, and it takes a while to learn, practice, and perfect his numerous combos and skills. But in the current meta, and with Gore Drinker massively nerfed in this patch, it doesn't matter if you're an experienced player with the Blind Monk, you'll still probably suffer in most of your games due to his lacking base stats and squishy early game. It's mostly due to the fact that Lee Sin is on the weaker side when compared to most meta picks in the jungle, and because most of the current popular picks synergize better with the new items. So even though he's number 5 in the jungle when it comes to pick rate worldwide, he's near the bottom of the barrel when you look at win rates. So unless you've got hundreds of games of experience on Lee, you're probably better off playing someone like Kha'Zix or Hecarim if you want to constantly climb. On to the mid lane. A pick that started at the peak and now finds herself at the bottom is Akali. Akali was at the top of the food chain going into the preseason, but due to nerfs, adjustments, and other indirect factors, she now finds herself around a 44% win rate from Iron all the way to Challenger. You can always tell if a high skill ceiling champ is OP if their numbers skyrocket in the higher ranks and are a staple in pro play. That's usually been the case for Akali, but over the past few patches, her numbers keep dropping, and with the nerf she received in 11.2, she's currently one of the worst picks for Season 11. Knowing Riot, she should receive some love over the next few months, but buffing a champ with an overtuned kit like Akali is always complicated. So for now, look elsewhere to be able to dash in and one-shot enemies, because until she gets a boost, it's not the ninja way. Our second pick for the mid lane has always been fairly difficult to balance, and he is none other than Ryze. Similar to Akali, Ryze's track record has always been broken in pro play, but difficult to carry with in solo queue, without a coordinated 5-man team. With the removal of Rod of Ages, and with mana items lacking in Season 11, the Rune Mage is at a point where he's in desperate need of some love from Riot, and will require a few buffs to be viable. Ryze is still one of the strongest late game picks, but with such an aggressive meta, and with the average game being slightly under 30 minutes, he never really has the opportunity to scale like he wants, and his damage in the mid game just feels lacking. Rod of Ages was such a great power spike for champions like Ryze, and being able to restore health and mana with such a cheap item was usually enough for him to survive enough to scale into the late game. And although he does have decent results with the new Luden's Tempest, he's just missing that tanky feel that made his mid-game combos so broken. So unless Riot comes out with something similar to the good old Rod, or overbuffs mana items, he'll remain a risky pick for Season 11. On to the support role, and the first champion we'd like to mention is Karma. Karma's numbers have been dropping for quite some time. Ever since the new items were implemented, she's been struggling to find her place in the current meta. She has a good combination between utility and damage, but other champions seem to synergize better with the new mythics, making Karma choose between her two roles and not really excelling at either. The problem with Karma in pro play and higher elos is that she can be very oppressive when played well. This makes her very difficult to balance and kind of forces Riot to choose between leaving her too OP or pretty much useless. The changes she received in 11.3 should help her improve in most elos, but as long as champions like Lulu and Seraphine dominate the bot lane, Karma will remain a pretty weak pick for Season 11. The other poor soul in desperate need of a buff for support is the River King Tom Kench. Now during Season 10, Tom didn't really receive that many changes. Although he did appear every once in a while in pro play, he was pretty much non-existent in solo queue, and most of the modifications were either bug fixes or adjustments to some interaction with his Devour. Similar to Karma, the River King has been pretty difficult to balance due to the fact that when strong, he actually becomes quite a decent pick in a solo lane, and thanks to the range and utility of his ultimate combined with his Devour, he remains a high priority pick in competitive play. At the end of last year, there were a few mentions of a possible rework where Riot was reviewing the options of switching his W with his R. This would add additional effects to his Devour while making his W similar to Rek'Sai's Burrow, enabling him to knock up enemies after traveling a short distance. But right before the start of Season 11, Riot released a statement on Reddit delaying the changes to 2021. So hopefully one day we'll see the great Kench back in the meta, but until then, I'd stay away from the swamp. Now finally, let's talk about the bot lane. And the first pick we'd like to mention is Kalista. Kalista has always been a risky AD pick. She has a high skill ceiling and depends on certain mechanics to kite, position properly, and dodge in teamfights. She's always been considered a good laner and can bully when played properly. Her problem though in Season 11 is that there are so many damage supports currently in the meta that can punish her and zone her away from CS. Kalista desperately needs a lead to stay ahead, because if not, she falls off pretty hard and she's very difficult to use when playing from behind. Basically, to win with Kalista, you need to dominate your lane, get an advantage, and close it out before you fall off in the late game. And unfortunately, in order to do that, you depend so much on your support that if there isn't enough coordination between you and your duo, Kalista becomes next to useless. So, if she's your main champ, you might be able to make it work. If not, there are plenty of great marksmen to choose from, all much stronger than Kalista. And our final pick for the ADC role is Xayah. Now, unlike Kalista, Xayah's numbers have been slowly increasing over the past few patches. Riot has done their best to slowly boost her power, but she just isn't there yet. Unlike other AD marksmen, Xayah depends heavily on mana to be viable. She has a strong level 3 power spike and can use her W and E for extended trades. Although she's pretty mobile, she can survive with her ultimate at level 6. The problem though is that she takes too long to come online, and with such a gank heavy meta and so much focus on early objectives, the high cooldown on her ultimate makes her very vulnerable to assassins and gap closing bruisers. Without her R, she's easy to focus in mid-game teamfights. Although she does gain a lot of power when combined with Rakan, Rakan's not in the best spot either. So that leaves Xayah to fend for herself, and other AD carries can fulfill the same role while possessing better synergy with the current support meta picks. At least we know Riot wants her back to her former glory, but when that time will come, nobody knows. So that's gonna wrap things up for our worst picks in Season 11. Just remember that if your favorite champion is on this list and you still have a positive win rate, then great. The goal here is to inform you on the current state of the meta and to give you the tools necessary to gain that sweet LP. Oh, and if you want to see some more from me, then show some love in the comments below. Or if you speak Spanish, then go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Till next time, good luck in solo queue, and we will see you on the Rift.